Across every ancient civilization, there were stones that were said to do more than just shine. They were believed to hold the power to repel darkness itself. These were not ordinary minerals buried beneath the earth. They were sacred stones carried by kings, priests, and warriors who believed that within them pulsed the very heartbeat of the divine. In forgotten temples and mountain shrines, these stones were placed at the center of rituals meant to protect the people from invisible forces, shadows that crept not only through the night, but through the human soul. From the sands of Egypt to the frozen peaks of Tibet, they were treated as living entities, each one bound to a cosmic purpose. One of the oldest among them is obsidian, the black volcanic glass born from fire and chaos. The Aztecs called it the mirror of the gods. To them, its glossy surface was not merely a reflection, it was a window. Shamans would gaze into polished obsidian discs for hours, seeking visions of the underworld and messages from deities. But obsidian was not only a spiritual tool, it was a weapon of purification. Warriors wore it carved into amulets, believing it could cut through deceit and drive away evil spirits that whispered before battle. Even today, in parts of Central America, small obsidian stones are kept near doorways to block what locals call the gaze of darkness, a form of spiritual illness that feeds on envy and fear. Another stone that terrified and fascinated ancient priests alike was the jet stone. Found deep within the cliffs of northern England and used since Roman times, jet was said to absorb not light, but the energy of grief and despair. The ancient Druids believed it could swallow sorrow and seal it away forever. During the Middle Ages, widows wore necklaces of jet to shield their hearts from spirits drawn to human suffering. In monasteries, pieces of jet were placed on tombs to prevent restless souls from returning. For centuries, it was whispered that if a cursed object touched jet, the curse would die with a faint hiss, like a candle drowned in holy water. Then there was Labradorite, the stone that carries the northern lights within it. Discovered by Inuit tribes on the coast of Labrador, it was believed to have fallen from the aurora itself, sky fire trapped in stone. The Inuit shamans used Labradorite as a shield against dark entities that roamed during the polar night, being said to feed on fear and isolation. The stone's shifting colors, blue, green, and gold, symbolized hope, transformation, and spiritual awakening. Even modern crystal healers call it the stone of hidden light, a reminder that brightness can still exist in the deepest night. When explorers brought it to Europe in the 18th century, it quickly became a talisman among sailors who crossed stormy seas, trusting it would guide them safely through the blackest waters. Perhaps the most sacred of all protective stones is black tourmaline, revered in both African and Indian traditions as a barrier between the human and the demonic. Shamans in the Congo carried pieces of it tied with animal sinew, claiming it could deflect curses before they ever touched the skin. In Hindu texts, tourmaline was described as a lightning-born stone, capable of absorbing negative vibrations and grounding them into the earth. Its energy was said to be like a spiritual thunderstorm, cleansing and resetting everything it touched. Even now, scientists recognize its ability to generate electrical charge when heated, a property that gave rise to its ancient reputation as a living protector. Not all stones that banish darkness are dark themselves. Some shine so brightly that ancient civilizations saw them as fragments of divine light. One such gem is clear quartz, known as the Stone of Truth. From the Japanese mountains to the temples of Greece, it was believed that quartz held frozen sunlight. Oracle priests placed it in bowls of water to amplify visions, while warriors carried it to repel deceit and illusion. When held to the sun, quartz refracted light into pure rainbows, a sign, according to legend, that truth itself was untouchable. It is said that in the tombs of Egyptian nobles, quartz was placed over the heart so that the soul could recognize its own light in the afterlife and find its way to eternity. But perhaps the rarest among these luminous protectors was moldavite, a green crystal said to have fallen from the heavens. Found only in parts of Central Europe, it was believed to be the remains of a meteorite that struck the earth millions of years ago. Ancient Slavic shamans called it the stone that fell from the stars, and used it to drive away spirits that brought disease and misfortune. Moldavite's energy was so intense that only the pure-hearted could touch it without feeling dizzy or faint. Many believed it connected the human spirit to celestial beings, forming a bridge between heaven and earth. Even modern mystics describe it as a stone that awakens the sleeping soul, burning away emotional shadows like fire through fog. Every culture that revered these stones understood the same truth in different forms, that darkness is not merely an absence of light, it is a living force that feeds on fear, ignorance, and despair. And just as shadows cling to walls at sunset, so too can they cling to people, places, and memories. These sacred stones were not magic in themselves, but reminders, anchors of faith, that light is something to be protected, renewed, and shared. In every era, they whispered the same promise, that even in the blackest depths, the earth still holds pieces of the sun. Throughout history, the belief in stones that repel darkness wasn't just superstition, it was survival. Before science, before electricity, people turned to the earth itself for protection against what they couldn't see. And among those who understood this more deeply than anyone were the monks and mystics who guarded sacred stones not as treasures, but as weapons against the unseen. In medieval Europe, abbeys hidden in the mountains kept archives describing rituals where gemstones were placed in circles of salt and consecrated with prayer to bind the shadow. For them, darkness wasn't just a metaphor. It was something that moved silently through sickness, war, and fear. And so they turned to the only defense they trusted, the stones that carried divine resonance. One such relic was the amethyst, known for centuries as the bishop's stone. Ancient texts describe it as the gem of clarity, capable of protecting the mind from corruption. Early Christian monks wore it on their rosaries, believing it could dispel temptation and cleanse the spirit of doubt. Its deep violet hue symbolized the balance between heaven and earth, the meeting point between the divine and the human. But even older civilizations, like the Greeks, believed amethyst could guard against intoxication, both of the body and the soul. They saw drunkenness not merely as weakness, but as a doorway through which evil could slip unnoticed. To wear amethyst was to remain awake, alert, and anchored in truth. In the deserts of Persia and the valleys of Tibet, turquoise held a power equally sacred. Unlike other stones of protection, turquoise was believed to connect heaven and earth. Warriors fastened it to their shields, believing the sky-blue color would grant them divine vision in battle. Nomads carried it across endless dunes as a guardian of the traveler's soul, for it was said to warn its owner of danger by changing color. In ancient Tibet, turquoise was more than jewelry, it was life itself. Families passed it down for generations, believing that as long as the stone remained intact, the lineage would be protected from misfortune. It was both an heirloom and a vow, a promise that protection must be earned through faith and care. Then there was the mysterious smoky quartz, revered in the Scottish Highlands and the mountains of China alike. It was called the stone of grounded light, said to capture negativity and dissolve it into the earth. Druids believed it acted as a bridge between realms, allowing the living to walk safely near the spirits of the dead. In Chinese temples, smoky quartz spheres were placed near incense burners so that the rising smoke would carry away dark energy. Even now, in modern metaphysical circles, it is seen as a stabilizer, a reminder that true protection comes not from avoiding darkness, but from facing it without fear. Perhaps the most revered of all protective crystals was sapphire, the celestial stone of kings. In both the Old Testament and the ancient Vedas of India, sapphire was said to embody divine justice. It was believed to blind the wicked and shield the innocent, shining with a light that no impurity could touch. Monarchs set sapphires into their crowns not merely for beauty, but as a covenant with heaven, a way to remind themselves that their power, if unguarded, could easily be consumed by shadow. Even in modern times, sapphire remains a symbol of wisdom, protection, and spiritual strength, a gem that still carries the weight of its ancient oaths. Each of these stones tells a story not just of faith, but of fear, the human need to believe that the world's darkness can be contained. Whether carried into battle, buried beneath temples, or worn against the heart, they were tokens of hope forged from the same earth that bore humanity itself. Across continents and millennia, the message was always the same. Light, even when faint, is eternal. And through these sacred stones, mankind learned not to flee from the dark, but to endure it until the dawn returned. Among the most enigmatic of all stones said to banish darkness is the onyx, a gem that seems to contain night itself. In ancient Mesopotamia, it was feared and revered in equal measure. Priests used it during lunar ceremonies, believing it absorbed the chaos of the moon and stabilized human emotion. Its surface, black as ink yet streaked with pale bands, symbolized the eternal struggle between light and shadow within the soul. Warriors carried onyx engraved with sacred seals, trusting it to keep away the spirits of confusion that were said to whisper fear into men's minds before battle. In Rome, generals would wear onyx rings when negotiating peace, convinced it granted them the clarity to see deceit even behind smiling faces. To the ancients, it was not simply a stone of defense, it was discipline in physical form. But perhaps no stone embodies the triumph of light over darkness more than the sunstone. Found in the cold lands of Scandinavia, this radiant mineral was treasured by the Vikings, who called it the stone of the sun god. Legend says that when the sky was covered in thick fog, sailors held up the sunstone to locate the hidden position of the sun and steer their ships home. Modern science later confirmed the myth. Certain types of sunstone polarize light, allowing navigation even through storms. To the Norse, it was a divine compass, a literal beacon of hope guiding them through the unknown. They believed it carried the spirit of the gods within, a reminder that even when the heavens vanished behind clouds, the light still existed, unseen but constant. Equally mysterious was lapis lazuli, the blue gem of royalty and prophecy. In the temples of Egypt, it was ground into powder and mixed into paint to color the eyes of divine statues. The priests believed that lapis captured the essence of the night sky, the eternal realm of the gods, and reflected it back as wisdom. Pharaohs wore it as a symbol of power over chaos, while their priests used it to enter trances during ceremonies meant to repel the forces of darkness. In Mesopotamia, lapis was said to house the voice of Ishtar, goddess of the morning star. When polished, its deep blue shimmered with golden flecks of pyrite, resembling stars scattered across the void, a cosmic reminder that even in darkness, there is beauty, order, and divine presence. Another stone whispered about in ancient texts is hematite, known as the blood of the earth. The Greeks and Romans noticed that when polished, it reflected like a dark mirror, and they believed it absorbed negativity like a sponge. Warriors rubbed hematite dust on their armor before battle, not just to shine their weapons, but to coat them in spiritual protection. They said it drank the fear of its bearer and turned it into strength. In burial rituals, hematite was placed on the chest of the dead, ensuring their souls would not be pulled back by the spirits of despair. Centuries later, mystics would still claim that hematite grounds the wandering mind, preventing it from drifting into darkness. It remains, even today, a guardian stone for those who seek stability in times of turmoil. Then came shungite, a mysterious black carbon stone found only in Russia. Scientists later discovered it contains fullerenes, molecules capable of absorbing radiation and toxins. Yet long before that, local shamans already believed it could cleanse both the body and spirit. Russian peasants placed pieces of shungite in their wells to purify the water, calling it the stone that eats darkness. It was said that anyone who carried it could walk through misfortune unharmed. Modern researchers marvel at its strange properties, but for those who've known it for centuries, its value goes beyond science. It's the physical manifestation of purification, a stone that turns poison into healing. Each of these sacred stones, from the darkest onyx to the radiant sunstone, tells a truth older than civilization itself. Humanity has always been at war with shadow, sometimes in the world, sometimes within. The ancients understood that power lies not in destroying darkness, but in transforming it. These stones were their teachers, their guardians, and their silent prayers carved from the bones of the earth. They remind us that light is not born from absence, but from resistance, and that even in a world drowning in shadow, the earth itself still offers the means to rise, to protect, and to remember that the dawn always comes. Through centuries of belief, worship, and silence, these sacred stones have endured like sentinels of light buried within the earth. Civilizations have risen and fallen, temples have turned to dust, and empires have been forgotten, yet the stones remain, unchanged, patient, waiting. Each carries the memory of countless hands that once held them in faith, of prayers whispered in caves, deserts, and mountains when hope itself seemed lost. To the ancients, these were not decorations. They were companions in the eternal struggle between fear and courage, despair and awakening. Even now, in a world lit by artificial light, humanity still searches for the same feeling they once offered, protection against the unseen. Modern science calls it energy. Ancient wisdom called it spirit. But both point to the same truth. The earth itself breathes with a rhythm that can heal or harm, depending on how it is treated. The sacred stones are its pulse points, natural guardians forged in pressure, fire, and time. When people hold them, they touch something older than language, older than belief, a reminder that light is not given freely. It must be chosen, preserved, and renewed every day. The priests of Egypt, the shamans of the Andes, the monks of Tibet, all understood this. The stones were not meant to do the work for us. They were mirrors, showing what we already carried within. Obsidian revealed the shadow, quartz amplified the truth, amethyst cleansed the mind, and labradorite reminded us that even in darkness, color still burns. To banish darkness was never their true power. It was to teach humanity how to become the light itself. And so, as centuries pass and faiths evolve, the legend of the sacred stones continues. Whether they rest in the vaults of museums or in the quiet palms of those who still believe, their message has never changed. Darkness may rise, as it always has, but these stones, born from the earth's fire and silence, stand as proof that the light has never truly left. It only waits, deep beneath our feet, for those brave enough to seek it.